Hello, and thanks for joining me. Today is Saturday, February 12th, and you are joining me for another edition of Simply Saturday. I'm Julie, and this is stampwithjuliebomb.com. Today's card is going to feature a stamp set called Biggest Wish. This has been a favorite ever since I got it a while back. I love the size of the words, and I love the big block letters combined with the script. There's so many wonderful things you can do with this. And then we're also using a very simple die. You really have your own choice of what you want to use. I have been using this scallop, and this is actually from a set of dies called Scalloped Contours. It can be purchased as a bundle. Let me think what the bundle is called. Color and Contour is the name of the bundle. But if you get just the dies alone, it's called Scalloped Contours. There are some beautiful scalloped rectangles, frame type shapes in there, and also this border, which is what I'll be using. Now, you might have an old border die. This one was from a long time ago, if you've been with Stampin' Up! For a while. This was an edgelet, and this was called the large scallop edgelet. Let me bring that white paper back in. This was the large scallop edgelet. That would work well too. And then I also want to tell you that in the current annual catalog, there is a set of dies called Basic Borders, and several of the dies from that die set would work as well. So we are going to start today, and again, this is Simply Saturday, so I like to show you a card that you can make easily and quickly. So I'm starting with a piece of thick basic white cardstock. This is 8.5 by 5.5, scored down the middle at 4 1/4 and folded. So I'm going to give that a crease with my bone folder. And then I've chosen some designer series paper. And the fun thing about this Simply Saturday card is you can really go through your scraps and just pick some papers that you want to use up. You don't have to start with anything super intentional. So on this sample one that I showed you in the preview screen, this was actually some paper from the Playful Penguins at the holidays. And the flip side is these cute and colorful patterns that absolutely do not scream Christmas or holidays. And so go through your scrap DSP, see what you have, even look through some of your holiday designer papers and look at the back sides. Sometimes there are generic patterns that you can use, even if the paper was meant to be Halloween or Thanksgiving. Sometimes that other side of the paper is generic enough that you can use it for lots of occasions. So I have chosen paper this time from Sunshine and Rainbows. The Sunshine and Rainbows Designer Series paper is actually a free gift with purchase from the Celebration brochure. Celebration is going on now through the end of February. So I chose 3 colors from that paper, and I cut a 1-inch strip of each. Then, as you can see, I ran it through my die cutting machine with one of the dies. Okay, so this one I happened to use the edgelets. So you've got your 3 strips, 1 inch wide, and you're going to run them through your die cutting machine so that you have the little scallop or whatever border you chose. Now let me also mention that I left my strips extra long. They only need to be 5.5 inches long. So if that's the length of your paper, you're going to be just fine. But whenever I have a little bit of extra paper, I like to leave the extra length on here. And when I'm building the card, you'll see how sometimes that is helpful. All right, so I'm going to set my strips aside, and I'm going to take my birthday stamp from that Biggest Wish set. And it looks like I need to make sure it's clean. I'm going to be starting with Flirty Flamingo. And one thing that you might want to do, you don't have to, especially on a Simply Saturday card where it shouldn't be a lot of measuring or a lot of effort, but I do want to find the center of my card just because I'm worried that I won't be able to eyeball it very good. So I'm just going to lay my straight edge on here and mark it at 2 3/4, just a tiny little edge, so that I know the center between the top and the bottom of my card. All right, now I'm going to ink up my birthday. Now this is a photopolymer stamp. It's also a very solid stamp. So when I ink this up, I'm going to walk it around different parts of my ink pad. I'm also going to spin my ink pad as I'm doing it. And the reason I'm doing this is so that I get really good coverage on those letters. If I have a dry area on my pad or one that's extra inky and I don't move my stamp around, I'm not going to get even ink on my image. So I do lots of walking around. Now I'm going to lay my cardstock on a Stampin' Pierce mat just to ensure that I get a nice image. And now I'm going to aim for that pencil mark that I made. So I'm in the middle of the paper, way over towards the right edge, and I'm going to stamp birthday. At this point, I am going to hold my stamp on there, also putting pressure down. Again, it's only because of those block letters that are really, really solid, and I want to give the ink a chance to soak into the paper. So I'm not going to take it and just stamp and release. All right, so after holding and pressing for a couple of moments, then I can release that and see my really nice image. Let's do that a second time. Again, I'm going to walk my stamp all around different areas of my ink pad. This time I'm going to stamp at the very bottom, as close to the bottom as I can without going off, and still looking at that right edge of the paper, and press and hold, giving it just a couple of moments to do the work. All right, there's my second one, and we're going to do this one more time in the Flirty Flamingo. Depending on what colors you choose, depending on your papers that you selected, this card could be for a child, an adult, a boy, a girl, a man, a woman. It just depends on what look you want and what you've selected. All right, so here's my third Flirty Flamingo birthday. This one's going at the very top. And then I'm going to clean my stamp and change colors. All right, next I'm going to switch to Granny Apple Green. And I'll ink my birthday stamp up the same way. Walk it around. Get it evenly inked. All right, this time I'm going to aim for right in between those two birthday words. And I'm also trying to go over to the right to keep it about the same distance from the edge of the paper. And ideally, I would hover over my card. My head would be right here and I would look, but we're going to take a chance and see if I got this somewhat centered in between those two. Still giving the ink a chance to soak into the paper. All right, and then we're going to do that one final time. Again, this is with our Granny Apple Green. All right, and this one's going to be a little bit harder for me to see from my angle while I'm filming, but I'm going to go between those two Flirty Flamingos and on the right edge of the paper. Okay, so super easy so far. 2 colors of ink, 1 stamp. And there's our birthday words. Next, we're going to go and add our strips of paper that we prepared. So I'll show you how I do this. If you are a good eyeballer, you may not have to take this extra step. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay my papers out to kind of get an idea where they're going to go. So this one might start there. This one I'm going to layer behind it. And what I'm trying to do, I'm going to scoop my stripes back. What I'm trying to do is get about an equal space of paper. So in other words, this space here, I want to be about the same amount of space between this one and the green one, so that these look somewhat equal. So can you see that? I don't want to line them up so that I've got one that's really skinny and one that's fat. So that's what I'm trying to eyeball between here and the edge of my paper. So I'm going to go with that, and this is that extra step that you might not want to do, but I'm just going to make a pencil mark so that after I lift this up to put my adhesive on it, I'll know right where it goes. All right, some liquid glue, and I'm going to go across the straight part and scoop down into the scallop of each one. So depending on what shape your border is, you just want to get good coverage with your adhesive. Okay, now I'm going to lay this onto my card. I've got my silicone mat down here just in case any adhesive goes off the edges. I won't have a mess to clean up. And now I'm going to just use that pencil mark and set my strip down, and then just kind of make sure that it is somewhat straight. There we go. All right, now I mentioned about the extra length on my papers. One thing that's nice if you have that extra length is you can let the edges hang off, and you don't have to worry about lining up this free edge, making sure this is straight, and also lining up that free edge. You don't have to worry about those at all. So I do like leaving that extra length, and then we're going to snip it off at the end. All right, our next one is this green pattern. So same process, I'm going to add my glue, make sure I get it up in my little scallops. I don't have to worry too much about the top and the bottom edge because they're going to hang off anyway. And remember how we talked about how much space to leave? So I'm just thinking about that, about this distance here. And I'm going to press that one into place. And then our third and final strip, this one is those cute polka dots. It was hard to decide which one to show because I have so many pieces of designer paper that would match with each other and look so cute on this card. So I did make several samples. I'll show you those at the end. Now I'm putting my last piece on. I like my spacing here, that looks good. And before I really press this down, I'm also going to fold my card just to check. See, I'm right at the edge of the cardstock, that's beautiful. And now I'm going to go ahead and give it a good press so that all of my adhesive is sticking those strips of paper to my cardstock. I've got a little sticky spot here that I'm just going to hit with my adhesive eraser. All right. Now at that point, I can take some scissors and I'm just going to trim off the top and the bottom of those strips where they hung off the edge. All right. I could use my paper snips, but I'm actually going to grab some long scissors because then I can make one nice cut and get rid of all of those edges of paper. All right. Now at that point, I've got the front of my card nearly finished. You can see that the designer paper does a lot of the work. Got your cute birthday words there. Now we need the word happy to go with it. So I have a scrap of white cardstock and I'm going to switch to Pool Party ink and stamp happy on my scrap. And then with your happy, you can either die cut it, or for a Simply Saturday card, I'm just going to reach for a punch because it's so fast. The tailored tag punch works very nicely. This is the Label Me, not Label Me Lovely. I'm going to have to remember what this one is called. I'm going to put this one in here. and punch. Then with just a couple of dimensionals, I'll add that to the front of the card. Like so. And then if you like to add just a little something extra, of course you can reach for your rhinestones, any other little embellishments that you might have. Here I've got my silver and clear epoxy essentials. So I'm just going to grab a couple of these clear little dots and add them just right here. They're just kind of a little shadowy accent that picks up the light. You don't need much. And there you have it. And there is our Simply Saturday card for today, February 12th. Let me show you a couple of the others that I did. This was the first one in the opening screen. This is done with Just Jade and with Highland Heather. And this is Misty Moonlight. I added some different kind of accents on that one. This was just some designer series paper in basic colors that I had, and I created the same card out of that. And this was the other die. This one is from the Scalloped Contours. This was with some retired designer paper. I only had little strips left and it was perfect. In fact, this one did not even start out quite 1 inch across and it still worked out just fine. And then I wanted to show you as the last one, if you like the idea of this card design, but you don't have any kind of border die, so you don't have anything that looks like this, you can also do the same design and just use strips of paper. All right, so I did this one with some more Sunshine and Rainbows paper, and I just used the 1 inch strips with no die cutting whatsoever, and it still turned out really, really cute. So don't let that hold you up if you don't have a border die. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video tutorial, please give me a thumbs up, and please do subscribe to my channel. I appreciate it so much. See you next time.